I'd now like to introduce you to the Grey Boy, my variation of a popular English chironomid or buzzer pattern. The hot orange hotspot does a wonderful job when using this pattern in deeper water. So I'm going to show you my Grey Boy, a variation of an English pattern that's very popular and does an excellent job for me when I'm fishing deeper water, 12, 14, 15, 16 feet, due to the fluorescent hotspot we put on this fly. And it looks like a staging pupa that's not quite fully inflated yet, so it's got a bit of a subtle contrast to it that works very well. So into the jaws of the vise, I've placed a Mustad C49S curved scud pupa hook, so number 10 in this instance. I placed a 7/64 black nickel bead onto the shank, and I've just sort of slid it back out of the way. I'm going to attach my tying thread right behind the eye of the hook using a minimum of wraps, so I don't want to build up any thread bulk. I'm going to trim off the excess, bring the thread back up right behind the hook eye, and I'm going to tie in the gill material, and I like to use the white uni stretch. Comes on spools. It's a stretchable floss that makes excellent gill material. And we're just going to place that on the hook shank with the majority of the material protruding out over the hook eye. We're going to trim that to length later. So I've got it on with 2 wraps, a wrap underneath to caulk it up out of the way, 1 more wrap, and then I pull on it because it has an elastic nature, reduces bulk, and then just wind back over the butts, back onto the shank, and then I'm going to whip finish. And this is a stage, as I said in previous flies that have gills, that you would do over and over and over again and gill, if you will, all your hooks, then slide on the beads, and then carry on tying the balance of the pattern that occurs behind the body of the fly that occurs behind the beads. We're just going to take our bead in this instance, use my forefinger to push it up into position, and then reattach the tying thread. And again, you'll notice the butt tie-in area of the gills is protruding out behind the bead, and I can give it a further securing coverage of thread. And then we're just going to build a nice thread underbody here, wind back into the bend. So the thread is about a 45-degree angle to the hook point, and then we're going to come forward in open wraps. We're going to secure in the gill material. Sorry, not the gill material, the ribbing. We've already got the gills in. Alright, so we're just going to take this, I'm going to bring my tying thread back just in front of the hook point there. I'm going to be at the hook point. And this is our rib. It's white stretch floss. Stretchy, lycra-based material. Makes an excellent gill material on this fly. And we're just going to tie this in place. A couple of wraps to secure. I'm actually going to take this and move it around the side. Alright. And we're going to trim. Super floss or stretch floss will stretch to twice its length. So what we're going to do is I'm going to cut this tag end here about half the distance to the back of the bead, and when I secure it forward, it's just going to stretch out and disappear neatly right behind the bead. So we're just going to pull on this, make sure we're good and secure this down the hook shank right to where I finish the thread underbody. And now the body of this fly can be any material you want. It could be frostbite, it could be flashaboo, but frankly the simplest thing to use is this nice 70 denier tying thread. It's flat, so I spin it counterclockwise to flatten the thread out so we have a nice slender body, and we start winding it forward. We're going to go back and forth up and down the shank and build a nice gradual taper. And you can watch how this, as I wind forward, how this stretch floss just will disappear under thread tension right into the back of the bead. So you don't have to worry about trying to trim your super stretch floss or your stretch floss perfectly. It's going to tuck right in there just like that. Just disappeared and gone. And now we're just going to spin our thread again counterclockwise when you look from the top and go back down. So we're going to go back and forth a couple of times and just build up a nice tapered body. The chironomid pupa has a natural taper to it as it gets towards the thorax, but we want to be careful we don't overdo it. We want a big We don't want a big, fat, obese chironomid, so we use our tying thread to build up our body in a nice, neat, controlled manner. So we're going to go right here, and we're just going to keep building up back and forth. Go back a little further. When I do this by myself, obviously I'm going a heck of a lot faster than this, but I just want to illustrate how you do this. Just back and forth. And you want to build it up right close to the opening on the bead, the smaller diameter opening. You want to build up your tying thread. Again, I'm just flattening the thread whenever possible. This is what's nice about these UTC threads. They're flat. You can wind them out, and they nice, wide, smooth wraps. So there's the finished underbody. I like that taper. Now we're just going to take our stretch floss, and we're just going to pull on it and make nice open wraps all the way up. Tie that off right behind the bead. 1 or 2 wraps behind, 2 in front to lock it off. I pull on it to stretch and reduce bulk. Trim away the excess. Whenever you tie off stretchy material, you should always put a half hitch or a whip finish in, and that's what we're going to do here, because actually we're going to transfer the thread, because we have to build up a hot spot on this fly. So I'm just going to build that up, trim that off, and at this point we can actually, at any point you can tie off the gills, trim the gills. So we're just going to moisten them to stroke them together. It is stretchy, so be careful you don't trim them in a stretched state. Just trim the gills just slightly in front of the hook eyes, about the bead. This distance of the gills should equal or be close to the length of the bead. So whenever size fly you're tying, it'll be the right length gills. You don't want them too long. Now for the hot spot, we're going to use some UTC 70 denier thread in fluorescent orange, or you could use fluorescent fire orange as well. And we're going to build this little hot spot. And like I said, these hot spot flies seem to work well in deeper water. They stand out in the crowd. And that's what we've got here, a little bit of a trigger. We're just going to get that thread started, trim away the excess. And again, do that same technique, because all we're going to do here is build up a neat thread thorax. Nice gradual slope. Don't build too aggressive a slope, or when you go to whip finish this fly, all the thread wraps will sort of tumble back onto each other. And we want to just spin that bobbin and build up a nice, neat, oops, that might have gone a little far here. Nope, we're going to unravel a little bit. And again, just go, if you're not happy with something, just stop and back up until you are happy with it. And we're just going to take our whip finisher and build a 3-turn whip finish right behind the bead, and just trim that away. We have a nice little hot spot, and all it's left to do now is to coat the fly with a finish. You can use super glues, hard as nails nail polish, head cement, or I like to use this UV clear fly finish in the thin formulation. It's excellent coating for chironomids. It's nice and thin, but it doesn't run all over the place. So you can build up some gradual coats. It comes with a brush applicator. You just want to make sure that it's not too heavily laden with material. You want to do this in control. It's better to build up thin layers and try to goop on one big, thick, heavy layer. And we just want to build this up and let it fill in. And you can see how that subtle white rib just gives it a little gray look to it, just like a pupa in the early stages, early moments when they stage along the bottom in large numbers before they gather enough trapped gases to aid their pupal ascent. So we just turn on our light, and we'll make sure we expose, and I don't know if you can see that, but you can really see under that UV light, and trout can see into the UV spectrum, how that hot orange hot spot right behind the bead shows up. And that is the finished gray boy. Again, an excellent chironomid pattern to prospect with in deeper waters, say 12 feet, 14 feet, 16 feet, that hotspot, these hotspot style flies really work well in those conditions. I hope you've enjoyed this pattern and you can add it to your fly box. For more information on fly fishing, and in particular my favorite, stillwater fly fishing, don't forget to visit my website at flycraftangling.com. And I'm also socially connected, so you can find me on Facebook. You can join in the conversation on Twitter as well. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in another episode.